lovely. It's Sarah Leonard here from acatlikecuriosity.com. Just sharing another episode of my Artcasts with you. This is episode 3 we're on at the moment. If you'd like to see more of those Artcasts, obviously you can head over to my website, acatlikecuriosity.com, and if you hover over the word art in the menu, you'll see Artcasts appear in the drop down, and you can have a look at all of the episodes that are available. This particular episode is about being thoughtful and mindful when dealing with kind of life's little mini grievances or griefs. I'm not necessarily talking about large happenings, so things like, if someone, a loved one were to die, or a pet were to pass away, or that kind of grief. But I think generally life has lots and lots of mini griefs that sort of hit us on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes it can be hard to know how to respond to those, and it's very easy to get kind of caught up in either overreacting or retreating into your shell. That's something I'm particularly guilty of, if you like, is the retreat thing. Retreat to a safe place, don't allow anybody in, and just sort of take it from there. That tends to be my default setting whenever I'm feeling kind of vulnerable, or as though things aren't quite panning out the way I wanted them to, particularly in relation to other people. I think often things don't pan out in life, and you can feel sad because nobody bought something from your shop, or you can feel sad because people aren't signing up to your new e-course, or whatever it might be. But often I find that the things that are the hardest to deal with are when people in your life, so friends, family, loved ones, don't respond the way you think they will, and don't maybe value your opinion in the way that you would like them to. That can be really much harder to deal with, and those are the kinds of mini griefs that I'm kind of talking about at the moment. So everyday situations, I suppose, or at least regular situations for most people. I think it's quite rare and quite magic, actually, if you do manage to have the kind of scenario in your life where these mini griefs never happen. Fair play to you. But I think for most of us, they do come along from time to time, and it can be tempting to just get very, very angry under those circumstances and feel very hard done by, because the person who is important to you just isn't listening to you, and doesn't want to listen to you, doesn't want to listen to your side of things, or so it seems. But often, if we take a little step back, we can see that really they're not necessarily not thinking about you. They're just thinking more about themselves. And I think as human beings, particularly with quite a busy lifestyle, I think most people these days do have very busy lifestyles, very often long hours at work and that kind of thing. We kind of, when we do get our own sort of spare time, we can become quite selfish with it, really, and that's either right or wrong, I suppose, depending on your viewpoint. But we can kind of guard it really, really well and really carefully, and we can really come to resent anyone who tries to get in the way of that, or tries to alter what it is that we want to do with our spare time. And it can feel very hurtful if, excuse me, as an example, say you wanted to do something in your spare time during the holidays or on the weekends or whatever, and your other half doesn't want to do it, or vice versa. And you've kind of, I suppose, well, there's always several options, but you've got the option of either compromising and sort of splitting up what you do. So sometimes you do what he wants, sometimes you do what you want. Excuse me. Or you have the option of moving separately and doing different things without the other person there. Excuse me. That's obviously a valid option. Often we might find, though, with that option of living kind of separately, that we feel a little bit let down, a little bit sort of disconnected from that person because life is so busy. This spare time being such a premium means that you would be spending an awful lot of time apart. So how to cope with that, I suppose, if and when that arises. I mean, if you happen to have other halves or friends or whoever is around in your life mostly who actually enjoy doing all the same things that you do, that can be brilliant. But that's not always the case, I think, particularly in relationships. It's the case is that most of the time people have very different, or often quite different anyway, interests and different ideas of what they want to spend their free time doing. And it's a case of dealing with that kind of mini grief that can sometimes feel a bit like a rejection, actually, of you and wanting to spend time with you and wanting to be together as a couple or whatever. So ways of kind of dealing with those kinds of mini griefs as they come up in day-to-day life. And this particular journal spread out, I created this one that you're seeing on the video when I was feeling that way, when I was in that kind of state and that kind of feeling of sort of that mini grief was there with me at the time, because both me and my husband have quite different ideas of things to do and things we like to do in our spare time. And often that can feel, it can just feel difficult, can feel hard, can feel awkward or whatever else, as if it is that kind of rejection sort of feeling, he doesn't want to spend time with me, he wants to do something else, and that means that it's bad. I don't think it does mean that it's necessarily bad, but sometimes it's quite hard to deal with that, and your instinct sometimes is to be angry about it, which obviously anger isn't always the most terribly helpful of emotions that we have. If I'm angry about something, I tend to retreat into my shell a little bit. That's just kind of my sort of style, really. I don't sort of retreat and don't say very much. And that can be quite hard, but from my point of view, I sort of feel, well, at least then I haven't said something in the heat of the moment that I can't easily take back later. I think generally dealing with those kinds of situations, I think what we have to try and remember is that it's not necessarily a rejection of us or a sign that your husband doesn't love you, or your loved one who doesn't want to spend his time with you wants to go off and do something else. It doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that they have things they want to achieve in this precious spare time, and they know perhaps that you wouldn't necessarily want to do it with them, and so they kind of need to go it alone a little bit, and that's okay. Although it can, in the heat of the moment, it can feel, like I say, like a bit of a rejection. I think the fact that as long as they're able to discuss it and talk it out with you, and you're able to reach an agreement and, a scenario that both sides are kind of content with, then I think that's really the best way to deal with it. I think to be kind of open and communicate a little bit more about it, and just get it to the stage where both parties are happy with what is planned to happen. There are other things I often do when I sort of retreat into my shell, just things that help me personally to sort of deal with the scenario without, as I say, sort of saying things that perhaps will be hard to take back, things that you say in the heat of the moment that you might regret at a later date. So I often retreat, obviously, to my art table, as you can see me sort of journaling away here. That's one thing that helps me to sort of process things, because I can work away and I can think of things kind of almost in an abstract way. It's not immediate, it's just the thoughts are there in the background whilst I'm busy doing something else, and that somehow that makes it less stressful to think about, rather than just sitting and sort of stewing over it, perhaps doing nothing at the time. That can quickly spiral into having imaginary arguments in your head, I think, with the person. So definitely art and creativity is a way that I kind of process those kind of mini griefs. But other things that I do, I do think that scents and fragrances can do a lot to actually help in stressful situations or in emotional situations. So, for example, I have I've shared this on my blog a few times actually. I have a little perfume trick that I use to help me unwind and just instantly relax. So I keep a set perfume that I only use at bedtime, and I started out doing this for 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, when I very, very first got this particular scent, which I really like, I would only ever use it just at bedtime, just before I was going to sleep, so that then my brain would associate that smell with kind of relaxation and relaxing. And then what happens after that is every time I then spray that fragrance, that feeling of relaxation comes over me, regardless of where I am or what I'm doing. So it's not just about dealing with little mini griefs, it can help in any situation really, because our sense of smell and those kinds of senses are very, very powerful actually in terms of invoking a sort of state of mind. So that's another thing you can try, either with perfumes or scents, or with essential oils or incense burning, or anything like that would really work, just to help you kind of take away the tension, so that you can see the situation then a bit more clearly, with a more sort of open mind and with less kind of worry attached to it. That can be really helpful with regards to any kind of stressful situation, but certainly dealing with sort of things that have just disappointed you, little mini griefs, things that have upset you during sort of the general day-to-day hustle and bustle of life. That kind of scent therapy, if you like, can be very, very handy as well. Another thing you can try is also musical therapy, in very much the same way. So if you have pieces of music that really signify a certain sort of emotion or feeling to you, and ones that you listen to that you know make you happy, that you know make you calm, that you know make you relaxed immediately once you listen to them, then those would be good ones to put onto your headphones at that stage, and they could actually help you to sort of help. Just the aim is to take the stress and the tension and the worry away from the situation, so that your brain can process it more clearly. Obviously none of us are perfect, none of us are always able to do these things. Sometimes we just immediately react angrily and get upset, and that's just the way it is. Like, that can't really be helped. But I do think some of those little tips can just help you back off a little bit and have a little think about what your next step might be.